The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Rachel pushed her shopping cart through the aisles of the grocery store. It was almost 9:30 at night and the store was nearly empty. She preferred it this way. Fewer people meant fewer judgmental stares when she spent 20 minutes comparing prices on the cheapest items. Her baby girl, Sophia, was bundled up in the cart's seat, her tiny hands clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. At 6 months old, Sophia didn't understand why Mommy's hands were shaking or why they were shopping so late at night. She just smiled her toothless smile, completely unaware of the weight pressing down on her mother's shoulders. Rachel stopped in front of the diaper section and felt her chest tighten. She'd been dreading this moment all day. 3 diapers left at home. 3. That might get them through tomorrow morning if she was lucky. She picked up the store brand package and checked the price. $38.99. She set it back down and grabbed the smaller package. $24.99. Still too much. She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app for what felt like the 100th time that day. $47.32. That was it until Friday, and today was only Tuesday. Her next paycheck wasn't coming fast enough. Rachel worked at Betty's Diner, the kind of place that served breakfast all day and where the coffee was always hot, but never quite good. She'd been pulling double shifts whenever they'd let her, working lunch and dinner, sometimes not getting home until midnight. Her feet ached constantly, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept more than 4 hours straight. But the tips were decent, and they let her bring Sophia to work during slow afternoon hours when she couldn't find a sitter. Between shifts, she was taking online classes. Nursing school. It was her way out, she kept telling herself. 2 more years and she'd have her degree. 2 more years and she could give Sophia the life she deserved. But right now, standing in a grocery store at night trying to figure out how to afford diapers, 2 years felt like forever. Last month, her car had broken down. The timing belt, the mechanic had said. $800. She'd put it on her credit card, the one she'd been trying so hard to pay off. Now the minimum payment had jumped and she was right back where she started. Actually worse than where she started. Her mom helped when she could. But she was living on Social Security and her own rent kept going up. Rachel couldn't bring herself to ask for more. Her mom had already given her the crib, the stroller, most of Sophia's clothes. She'd done enough. Sophia's father wasn't in the picture. He'd left when Rachel told him she was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready to be a dad. She hadn't heard from him since. No child support, no phone calls, nothing. It was just her and Sophia against the world. Rachel grabbed the cheaper diaper package and put it in her cart. She wheeled over to the formula aisle next. Sophia was on formula now. Rachel had tried to breastfeed, she really had. But between the stress and exhaustion and working long shifts, her supply had dried up after 3 months. The guilt had eaten at her for weeks. Formula was so expensive and she knew breast milk was better, but she couldn't change it now. She had to move forward. She picked up the smallest container of formula she could find. $19.99. She added it to her cart. That put her at $44.98, not counting tax. She was already over budget. Rachel walked to the bread aisle and grabbed a loaf of the cheapest white bread. 99 cents. Then she picked up 2 packages of ramen noodles. 35 cents each. That would be her dinner for the next few days. She'd eaten worse. She avoided looking at the produce section, the meat section, all the things she couldn't afford. She remembered a time before Sophia when she could buy fresh fruit without checking her bank account first. When she could grab a coffee from the shop down the street without feeling guilty. Those days felt like they belonged to a different person. As she headed toward the checkout lane, Sophia started to fuss. Rachel bounced the cart gently and made silly faces until the baby smiled again. That smile was worth everything. Worth the exhaustion, the stress, the ramen noodles for dinner. When Sophia looked at her like that, like she was the whole world, Rachel felt like maybe she was doing something right. There were only 2 checkout lanes open this late. Rachel chose the one with the shorter line. An older woman was ahead of her, counting out exact change for her items. Behind her, Rachel unloaded her cart. Diapers, formula, bread, 2 ramen packages. That was it. That was all she could manage this week. The cashier, a middle-aged woman who looked as tired as Rachel felt, began scanning items. The beep of the scanner seemed louder than usual in the quiet store. Rachel watched the total climb on the small screen. $38.99, $58.98, $59.97. Her heart started racing. She'd forgotten to calculate the tax. How had she forgotten the tax? That'll be $52.17, the cashier said, her voice flat and professional. Rachel felt the blood drain from her face. $52.17. She had $47.32. She was $5 short. $5 that might as well have been $500. Could you? Rachel's voice came out barely above a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. Could you take off the formula, please? The cashier nodded, her expression unchanged. She'd probably seen this a dozen times tonight alone. She scanned the formula again to remove it. $32.18. Still too much. Rachel's hands were shaking now. Behind her, she could hear someone else getting in line. Great. An audience for her humiliation. And the bread, too, Rachel said, her cheeks burning hot. Sorry. Sophia started crying like she could sense her mother's distress. Rachel wanted to pick her up, to comfort her, but she needed to get through this checkout first. She bounced the cart again, making shushing sounds. The cashier removed the bread. $31.19. Rachel did the math in her head. With tax, that would be around $33. Still cutting it close, but she could make it work. She'd just have to skip lunch tomorrow. And maybe dinner. She'd done it before when money was tight. Black coffee and determination could get a person through a day. She fumbled with her debit card, sliding it into the reader with trembling fingers. Please don't decline, she prayed silently. Please just go through. She couldn't handle having to put back the diapers too. Sophia needed those diapers. As she waited for the transaction to process, Rachel felt the familiar sting of tears building behind her eyes. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in the middle of a grocery store. She'd save that for later, for when she was alone in her car in the parking lot. That was where she did most of her crying these days. The person behind her in line shifted, and Rachel suddenly became hyper-aware of how long she was taking, how pathetic she must look. Choosing between baby formula and bread, she wanted to apologize, to explain, to tell them she wasn't always like this, that she was trying, that she was working toward something better, but she didn't say anything. She just stood there, waiting for the card reader to make its decision about whether she could afford diapers this week. The card reader beeped. Approved. Rachel let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her shoulders sagged with relief as the receipt printed out. The cashier handed it to her without making eye contact. Already looking past her to the next customer, Rachel grabbed the plastic bag containing her diapers and ramen noodles and started to push her cart toward the exit. Sophia had stopped crying but was making those little hiccuping sounds that babies make after they've been upset. Rachel stroked her daughter's soft cheek and whispered, "It's okay, sweet girl. We're okay." But they weren't okay. Not really. Rachel had just spent most of her money on diapers alone. She still needed formula, and Sophia was going to run out by tomorrow afternoon. She'd have to figure something out. Maybe she could ask her coworker Lisa if she had any extra. Lisa's son was a year old now. Maybe she had some leftover formula she wasn't using. The thought of asking for help made Rachel's stomach twist. She hated asking for anything. She'd been on her own since she was 18, making her own way, figuring things out. Asking for help felt like admitting defeat. As she walked through the automatic doors into the parking lot, the cool night air hit her face. It felt good after the stuffiness of the store. She was headed toward her car when she heard a voice behind her. "Miss? Excuse me, miss." Rachel turned around. A man was walking toward her, the same man who'd been standing behind her in line. He was older, maybe in his 50s, wearing a nice suit that looked expensive even in the dim parking lot lighting. He had kind eyes, though, and something about his expression made her stop instead of hurrying away. "Yes," Rachel said cautiously, instinctively moving closer to her cart where Sophia sat. "I'm sorry to bother you," the man said, stopping a respectful distance away, "but I couldn't help but notice what happened in there." At the checkout, Rachel's cheeks burned hot again. Of course he'd noticed. He'd been standing right there while she'd humiliated herself, putting items back because she couldn't afford them. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "We're fine." "I'm sure you are," the man said gently. "But I was wondering if you'd let me help. Let me buy you those things you had to put back." "The formula and the bread." Rachel shook her head immediately. "No, thank you, but no. I can't accept that. Why not?" The question caught her off guard. Because I don't take handouts from strangers." "It's not a handout," the man said. His voice was calm, not pushy or aggressive, just sincere. "Think of it as one parent helping another. I have kids. I know how hard it can be. Rachel looked at him more carefully. He didn't look like someone who'd ever had to choose between diapers and formula. His suit probably cost more than her rent. His shoes were polished. His watch looked real, not the kind you bought from a kiosk at the mall. What could he possibly know about her situation? I appreciate the offer, Rachel said, trying to keep her voice steady. But I'm okay, really. She started to turn away, but the man spoke again. Please let me do this. You'd be doing me a favor, actually. That made Rachel pause. A favor? How? The man smiled, and something in his expression reminded Rachel of her grandfather, who'd passed away when she was 12. That same gentle warmth. Someone did something like this for me once when I needed it most. I promised myself that if I ever got the chance, I'd pay it forward. So really, you'd be helping me keep a promise. Rachel stood there in the parking lot, torn between pride and practicality. Pride told her to say no, to thank him and walk away, to handle her own problems like she always did. But practicality whispered that Sophia needed formula, and she didn't have any money left, and Friday was still 3 days away. Sophia made a cooing sound from the cart, and Rachel looked down at her daughter's face. She was sucking on her thumb, her eyes starting to droop with sleep. She trusted her mother completely, had no idea about unpaid bills or empty bank accounts or the constant stress that kept Rachel up at night. Just the formula and bread? Rachel asked quietly. Whatever you need, the man said. I noticed you only had a few things. What else were you planning to get tonight? Rachel shook her head. That was it. The man looked at her for a long moment. What else do you need this week? For you and your daughter? I told you I'm fine. The formula and bread would be... That would be really generous. Thank you. Humor me, the man said. What would you buy if money wasn't an issue right now? Rachel almost laughed. Money was always an issue. It had been an issue for so long she couldn't remember what it felt like to not check price tags, to not calculate every purchase 3 times. Probably some baby food. Maybe some fruit. Some actual groceries instead of ramen. Then let's go back inside, the man said. Let me get you a proper week's worth of groceries. No, I can't let you do that. That's too much. It's not too much, he said firmly but kindly. And before you argue, let me tell you something. I grew up poor. Really poor. The kind where you wear the same shoes until they fall apart. Where dinner is whatever you can afford. My mom worked 3 jobs to raise me and my sister. One time, when I was about 10, we were at a store just like this one. My mom was trying to buy groceries for the week and she didn't have enough money. She had to put things back just like you did tonight. Rachel felt her throat tighten. A woman behind us in line, the man continued, saw what was happening and paid for our groceries. The whole cart. My mom cried right there in the store. That woman probably spent $50 or $60 that day. But to us it was everything. It meant we ate that week. It meant my mom didn't have to skip meals to feed us. And that woman, she just smiled and said, take care of those babies. Then she left. The man's eyes were a little misty now. I never forgot that. I never forgot how it felt to be helped when we needed it most. And I never forgot the look on my mom's face. Relief. Like someone had lifted the world off her shoulders just for a moment. Rachel didn't realize she was crying until she felt the tears on her cheeks. She wiped them away quickly with the back of her hand. So please, the man said, let me do this. Not because you need charity, but because someone once helped my family and I want to honor that kindness. And maybe someday when you're in a position to help someone else, you will. That's how it works. Rachel looked at Sophia, then back at the man. Every instinct told her to refuse, to maintain her pride, to handle things herself. But she was so tired. Tired of struggling, tired of choosing, tired of carrying everything alone. Okay, she whispered. Okay, thank you. The man smiled and it lit up his whole face. Thank you for letting me help. Now come on, let's get you and this beautiful baby some real groceries. They walked back into the store together, and Rachel felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Just a little bit, but it was there. And for now, that was enough. Walking back into the store felt surreal. Rachel pushed her cart with Sophia while the man walked beside her, and she kept thinking this couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. She'd spent so long just trying to survive that she'd forgotten what kindness from a stranger felt like. I'm Daniel, by the way, the man said as they entered through the automatic doors. I should have introduced myself earlier. Rachel, she said quietly. And this is Sophia. Daniel smiled at the baby, who was now fully awake and looking around with wide, curious eyes. She's beautiful. How old? 6 months. Rachel felt some of the tension in her shoulders ease. This felt like a normal conversation, not like she was someone receiving charity. Just two people talking. That's a great age, Daniel said. They're not quite mobile yet, so you can still put them down and they stay put. Enjoy it while it lasts. Once they start crawling, it's chaos. Rachel smiled despite herself. I keep hearing that. They made their way to the baby section first. Daniel grabbed a shopping cart of his own. Okay, what does Sophia need? And be honest. Don't just say formula. Rachel hesitated, then gestured to the baby food jars. She's just starting solids. The pediatrician said to try different vegetables and fruits. Then let's get a variety, Daniel said, and started putting jars into his cart. Carrots, sweet potatoes, peas, apples, bananas. Rachel watched in amazement as he filled the cart with what would have taken her weeks to afford. Baby wipes? He asked. Rachel nodded. She was running low on those too. Daniel added 2 large packages to the cart. What about you? He asked. When's the last time you had a real meal? Rachel felt her cheeks flush. I eat. Ramen doesn't count, Daniel said gently. Come on, let's get you some actual food. They moved through the store and Daniel let Rachel pick items while he pushed his cart behind her. She tried to choose the cheapest options, but he kept encouraging her to get what she actually wanted. Fresh chicken breast instead of the discount frozen patties. Real vegetables instead of canned. A package of cheese, some eggs, a gallon of milk. Fruit, Daniel said when they passed the produce section. You mentioned wanting fruit earlier. Rachel picked up some apples and bananas, then paused at the strawberries. She loved strawberries, but they were always so expensive. She moved past them. Wait, Daniel said. He grabbed a container of strawberries and put them in his cart. Life's too short to skip the strawberries. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes again. It was such a small thing, a container of strawberries, but it felt enormous. When was the last time she'd bought herself something just because she wanted it? Not because it was on sale or the absolute bare necessity. By the time they finished shopping, Daniel's cart was overflowing. Baby supplies, groceries, even some things Rachel hadn't asked for but he'd insisted on. A rotisserie chicken from the deli so she wouldn't have to cook tonight. A box of granola bars she could keep in her bag for when she was at work. A package of coffee, the good kind, not the instant stuff she usually bought. At the checkout, a different cashier rang up everything. Rachel watched the total climb higher and higher on the screen. $217. She felt dizzy. That was more than she usually spent on groceries in a month. Daniel paid without hesitating, sliding his credit card through like it was nothing. Maybe for him it was nothing, but for Rachel it was everything. The cashier loaded the bags into the cart and Daniel helped Rachel push both carts out to the parking lot. Where are you parked? He asked. Rachel led him to her car, a 10-year-old sedan with a dent in the passenger door and a bumper sticker that was peeling off. She felt self-conscious about it next to Daniel's nice suit and obvious success, but he didn't seem to notice or care. He helped her load the groceries into her trunk, making sure nothing would crush or tip over. Sophia was getting fussy again, ready for bed. Thank you, Rachel said when everything was loaded. The words felt inadequate. How do you thank someone for something like this? I don't know how to. This is just. Thank you. You're welcome, Daniel said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. I want you to have this. Rachel took the card and looked at it. Daniel Chen, it read. Chief Executive Officer, Chen Industries. There was a phone number and an email address. Her eyes widened. You're a CEO? I am, Daniel said simply. But that's not why I'm giving you the card. I run a foundation that helps families. Single parents, people going through hard times, folks who just need a hand up. We offer all kinds of assistance. Job training, educational scholarships, childcare support, emergency funds. If you ever need help, real help, I want you to call that number. Rachel stared at the card in her hand. I don't understand. Why would you do all this for a complete stranger? Because somebody did it for me, Daniel said. And because I believe we're supposed to help each other. We're all just people trying to get by, Rachel. Some of us have more resources than others. That doesn't make us better or worse. It just means we have different responsibilities. He glanced at Sophia, who was fighting sleep in her car seat. You're working hard. I could see that tonight. You're trying to do right by your daughter. That takes courage and strength. Sometimes we all need help, and there's no shame in that. I'm in nursing school, Rachel heard herself say. She wasn't sure why she was telling him this. Online classes. I work at Betty's Diner during the day. I'm trying to build a better life for us. Daniel's face lit up. That's wonderful. Nursing is such an important field. How much longer do you have? 2 years if everything goes according to plan. But plans don't always, Rachel trailed off. Look, Daniel said. I mean what I said about the foundation. We have programs specifically for people going back to school, especially single parents. We can help with tuition, books, childcare while you're in class. The application process is simple. I can have someone from my team reach out to you this week if you want. Rachel felt like her brain couldn't process what was happening. A few hours ago, she couldn't afford diapers. Now a CEO was offering to help pay for her education. I don't want to take advantage, she said slowly. You're not, Daniel assured her. This is what the foundation exists for. We help hundreds of families every year. People who are working hard and just need some support to get where they're going. That sounds like you. Sophia let out a wail, officially done with being patient. Rachel needed to get her home and into bed. Think about it, Daniel said. Call the number on that card. Even if you just want to learn more about the programs we offer. No pressure, no obligations. Just options. Okay, Rachel said. I will, and thank you. For everything. For the groceries, for listening, for seeing me. That last part came out before she could stop it, but it was true. She'd felt invisible for so long. Just another struggling single mom, another tired waitress, another face in the crowd. But tonight someone had seen her, had recognized her struggle and responded with kindness. Take care of yourself and that beautiful baby, Daniel said. He waved at Sophia, who had stopped crying and was watching him with big eyes. And call that number. Promise me you'll at least think about it. I promise, Rachel said. She drove home that night with a trunk full of groceries and a business card in her purse. Sophia fell asleep in her car seat before they even got out of the parking lot, and for the first time in longer than she could remember. Rachel let herself imagine that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Rachel sat on her apartment floor that night after putting Sophia to bed, surrounded by grocery bags. She'd been unpacking them slowly, almost reverently, still unable to believe what had happened. Fresh strawberries sat on her counter, real chicken in her refrigerator, jars of baby food lined up in her cabinet like little soldiers of hope. She picked up Daniel's business card from where she'd set it on the coffee table. The paper felt expensive, thick and smooth. Chen Industries. She pulled out her phone and typed the name into the search bar. The first result made her breath catch. Chen Industries was huge, not just some local company, but a corporation with offices in 12 countries. They manufactured electronics, had contracts with major retailers, employed thousands of people, and Daniel Chen was at the top of it all. She clicked on the news section. There were dozens of articles about him. Tech CEO pledges $100 million to education reform. Daniel Chen named Philanthropist of the Year. From food stamps to fortune, one man's journey. That last headline caught her attention. She clicked on it and started reading. The article was from 3 years ago, a feature piece in a business magazine. It told Daniel's story, the one he'd hinted at in the parking lot but hadn't fully explained. He'd grown up in poverty in a small town in Ohio. His father had left when he was 2. His mother worked as a housekeeper during the day, a gas station attendant at night, and cleaned office buildings on weekends. They lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, sometimes went without electricity when money was too tight. Daniel wore donated clothes and ate free lunch at school. The article described the incident at the grocery store, the one Daniel had mentioned. He was 10 years old and his mother was trying to buy food for the week. They were $12 short. His mother had started crying as she told the cashier to put items back. A woman in line behind them, someone they'd never met, paid for everything. $53.27, Daniel said in the interview that he still remembered the exact amount. That moment changed his life. Not because of the money, though, that helped them eat that week, but because it showed him that people could be good, that strangers could care, that there was kindness in the world even when everything felt dark. Daniel had worked hard in school, gotten a scholarship to community college, then transferred to a state university. He'd studied engineering, worked 3 jobs to pay for what the scholarships didn't cover, graduated with honors, started his first company at 26 in his apartment, Failed. Started another one at 28. That one worked. Sold it 5 years later for enough money to start Chen Industries. But the article said he'd never forgotten where he came from. Never forgot what it felt like to be that 10-year-old boy watching his mother cry in a grocery store. That's why he'd started the Chen Foundation 8 years ago. It had helped over 15,000 families since then. Provided scholarships, job training, emergency assistance, childcare support. Rachel's hands were shaking as she scrolled through more articles. There were photos of Daniel at charity events, speaking at conferences, standing with families who'd been helped by his foundation. In every picture, he had the same warm smile he'd given her in the parking lot. She found the foundation's website and clicked through the pages. There was a section about their programs. The scholarship program caught her eye. Full tuition coverage for single parents pursuing degrees in healthcare, education, or social services. Stipend for living expenses. Free child care at their facility. Job placement assistance after graduation. It seemed too good to be true. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Did they? Rachel looked around her tiny apartment, one bedroom that she and Sophia shared, a bathroom where the sink leaked and the landlord kept promising to fix it, a kitchen with appliances that were older than she was. This was all she could afford on her diner salary. This was the best she could do. But maybe it didn't have to be. She looked at Sophia's crib in the corner, at her daughter sleeping peacefully, one tiny fist curled near her face. What kind of life could Rachel give her if she actually finished nursing school? If she didn't have to work doubles at the diner? If she could focus on her studies? If she had real support? Rachel picked up her phone and opened her email. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. What would she even say? Hi, remember me, the desperate woman from the grocery store? It sounded pathetic, but Daniel had said to reach out. He'd seemed sincere. And what did she have to lose? She started typing. Dear Mr. Chen, this is Rachel from the grocery store tonight. I'm the one with the baby who you helped. I wanted to thank you again for your incredible generosity. You didn't have to do what you did, but it meant more to me than you could possibly know. She paused, reading over what she'd written. It sounded too formal. She deleted it and started again. Hi Daniel, it's Rachel from tonight. I just wanted to say thank you again. I've been sitting here looking at all the groceries you bought, and I keep thinking this can't be real. But it is. You didn't just help me buy food. You reminded me that there are good people in the world. I'd forgotten that. Better. She kept going. I looked you up online. I hope that's not weird. I just couldn't believe that someone so successful would take the time to help a random stranger in a grocery store. Reading your story about your mom and how someone helped your family, it made me cry. Because that's exactly how I felt tonight. Like someone lifted this weight off my shoulders just for a moment and let me breathe. I've been struggling for so long. Working at Betty's Diner, taking online classes, trying to be a good mom to Sophia. Most days I feel like I'm failing at all of it. I'm exhausted all the time. I worry constantly about money. I worry that I'm not giving my daughter the life she deserves. I worry that I'll never finish school, never make it out of this situation. But tonight gave me hope. Real hope. Not just the fake kind I tell myself to get through the day. You told me about your foundation and the programs you offer. I want to learn more. I want to apply if I'm eligible. I'm willing to work hard. I've been working hard. I just need a chance. I'm studying to be a nurse. I have 2 years left if I can keep going. But it's been so hard to balance everything. If there's any way your foundation could help, I would be so grateful. I promise I won't waste the opportunity. I promise I'll use it to build a better life for my daughter. Thank you for seeing me tonight. Thank you for caring. And thank you for giving me permission to hope again. Rachel. She read it through 3 times, changed a few words, then hit send before she could talk herself out of it. The email whooshed away into the digital universe. There. It was done. Rachel looked at the clock. Almost midnight. She had to be at the diner at 6 in the morning. She should sleep. But she felt too wired, too full of possibility and fear and hope all mixed together. She got up and went to the kitchen, cut up some of the strawberries Daniel had insisted on buying. She ate them slowly, savoring each bite. They tasted like summer and sweetness and second chances. Her phone buzzed. An email notification. Her heart jumped. It was an automatic reply from Daniel's email. Thank you for your message. I will respond as soon as possible. Rachel smiled. Of course he wouldn't reply immediately. It was midnight. He probably got hundreds of emails a day. She shouldn't expect anything right away. She finished her strawberries, brushed her teeth, and climbed into bed. Through the thin walls, she could hear her neighbor's TV. Outside, cars drove past on the street below. Sophia made little sleeping sounds from her crib. Rachel closed her eyes and for the first time in months felt something other than dread about tomorrow. She felt possibility, and that was enough to let her finally sleep. Rachel was pouring coffee for the morning rush at Betty's diner when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She ignored it. The breakfast crowd didn't care if she had a message. They wanted their eggs and bacon and endless coffee refills. It wasn't until her break at 9:30 that she finally pulled out her phone. She had 3 new emails. The first 2 were junk. The third was from Daniel Chen. Her hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Rachel, thank you for reaching out. Your email moved me deeply. I meant what I said last night about wanting to help. I'd like to meet with you this week to discuss the Foundation's programs and how we might be able to support you in finishing your nursing degree. Would you be available Thursday afternoon? We have a family resource center downtown where we meet with applicants. It's a comfortable, informal space. You're welcome to bring Sophia. We have childcare staff on site. Let me know what time works for you. Daniel. Rachel read it 3 times, then a 4th. This was really happening. A CEO wanted to meet with her, wanted to help her. She looked around the diner at the worn booths and the cracked linoleum floor, and the customers who barely looked at her when she took their orders. This could be her way out. She typed back quickly before her break ended. Thursday afternoon works. Thank you so much. What time? His response came 10 minutes later. 2 o'clock? I'll have my assistant send you the address. Thursday felt like it would never come. Rachel worked her shifts at the diner, studied during Sophia's naps, and tried not to get her hopes up too high. But it was hard. She kept imagining what it would be like to not worry about money constantly, to focus on school without wondering how she'd pay rent, to give Sophia a stable life. On Thursday morning, she dressed in the nicest clothes she owned. A simple black dress she'd bought from a thrift store for her cousin's wedding 2 years ago. It was a little loose now because she'd lost weight from skipping too many meals, but it was professional. She put on the small gold earrings her grandmother had given her before she passed away, did her makeup carefully, covering the dark circles under her eyes. Sophia wore a little yellow dress with flowers on it, one of the outfits Rachel's mom had bought her. She looked beautiful. Rachel wanted to make a good impression, even though she knew Daniel had already seen her at her lowest point, crying in a grocery store checkout line. The resource center was in a renovated building downtown. It didn't look intimidating from the outside, just a regular brick building with big windows and a cheerful blue door. Rachel took a deep breath and went inside. The interior was warm and welcoming. Comfortable couches, plants in the corners, children's toys in a play area. Nothing like the cold government assistance offices she'd been to before, with their hard plastic chairs and fluorescent lighting and workers who looked through you instead of at you. A young woman at the front desk smiled warmly. You must be Rachel. Daniel said you were coming. I'm Patricia. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? I'm okay, thank you. Rachel bounced Sophia gently. The baby was looking around with wide eyes, taking in all the new sights. She's adorable, Patricia said. If you'd like, our childcare room is just down the hall. The staff is amazing. All certified, background checked, the works. Some of our visitors like to have their meetings without juggling a baby, but it's totally up to you. Rachel hesitated. She didn't like leaving Sophia with strangers. But Sophia was getting heavy and she was starting to fuss. Maybe for a little while. Patricia led her to a bright room filled with age-appropriate toys, soft mats, and 2 smiling women who immediately cooed over Sophia. Rachel watched as one of them took Sophia gently and started showing her a soft book. Sophia seemed fascinated. She'll be great, Patricia assured her. And you're just down the hall. Ready to meet with Daniel? Rachel nodded, even though her heart was pounding. Patricia led her to a small office that felt more like someone's living room than a workplace. Daniel stood when she entered, that same kind smile on his face. Rachel, thank you for coming. Please sit. He gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk. They talked for almost 2 hours. Daniel asked about her background, her goals, what she needed to succeed. Rachel found herself opening up in a way she rarely did, telling him about Sophia's father leaving, about her mom's limited ability to help, about the struggle to balance work and school and parenting. about her dream of becoming a nurse because she wanted to help people, wanted to make a difference. Daniel listened to everything. Really listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk. He asked thoughtful questions. He took notes. Then he explained the Foundation's scholarship program in detail. Full tuition coverage for her remaining 2 years, a monthly stipend of $2,000 for living expenses, free childcare at this very center during her classes and clinical rotations, a mentor who was a nurse and could guide her through the program, and after graduation job placement assistance. "I don't understand," Rachel said quietly. "Why would you do all this? What do you get out of it?" Daniel leaned back in his chair. "What I get is knowing that I helped someone change their life. That Sophia grows up with a mom who has a career she loves, who can provide for her, who can show her what's possible when someone believes in you. That's worth more than money to me." He pulled out a folder. "This is the application. It's not complicated. Basic information. A short essay about your goals. Some financial documents. I'll be honest with you, Rachel. Based on our conversation, you're exactly the kind of person this program was designed for. Someone who's working hard, who has a clear goal, who just needs support to get there." Rachel took the folder with trembling hands. "When would I hear back?" "If I apply." Daniel smiled. "You're looking at the decision maker. I'd like to offer you the scholarship today if you're interested." The room seemed to tilt. "Today, but don't you need to review my application? Check my grades? Talk to other people? I've seen everything I need to see. You're raising a baby alone, working full-time, and still pursuing your education. Your online program coordinator sent over your transcripts when I called this morning. You have a 3.7 GPA while juggling all of that. Those are the qualifications I care about." Rachel realized she was crying. Again. She seemed to cry a lot lately. But these were different tears. Not tears of stress or desperation or exhaustion. These were tears of relief, of hope, of a door opening that she'd thought was permanently locked. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Daniel said gently. "Say you'll let us help you finish your degree. Say you'll give yourself and Sophia the chance you both deserve. Yes?" The word came out as barely more than a breath. "Yes, thank you, yes." The next 2 years changed everything. Rachel quit the diner and focused on her studies. She brought Sophia to the Resource Center's childcare program 5 days a week, where her daughter thrived around other kids and caring teachers. The stipend covered rent, groceries, everything she needed. She didn't have to choose between diapers and formula anymore. She didn't have to skip meals. She could just focus on becoming a nurse. She graduated at the top of her class. Daniel came to the ceremony sitting in the audience with a huge smile on his face. Rachel's mom was there too, crying happy tears. Sophia, now 2.5, didn't understand what was happening but clapped along with everyone else. The foundation helped Rachel get a job at the Children's Hospital downtown. Good pay, good benefits, a career with a future. She found a better apartment. Nothing fancy but clean and safe, with a bedroom for Sophia. But the biggest change was how Rachel saw herself. She wasn't just a struggling single mom anymore. She was a nurse. She was someone who helped others. She was someone who'd been given a chance and made the most of it. A year after graduation, Rachel started volunteering at the Resource Center on her days off. She wanted to help other single parents the way she'd been helped. She'd talk to them, share her story, let them know that change was possible. 5 years after that night in the grocery store, Rachel stood at the Foundation's annual fundraising dinner as a keynote speaker. She looked out at the crowd of 500 people, donors and volunteers and families who'd been helped. She told her story about standing in a checkout line, unable to afford diapers and formula, about a stranger who saw her struggle and responded with kindness, about how that single act of compassion changed the entire trajectory of her life. Daniel sat at a front table, and when their eyes met, Rachel saw him wipe away tears. She understood now what he'd tried to tell her that night. This was bigger than money or scholarships or programs. This was about human connection, about seeing someone struggle and choosing to help, about believing that we're all in this together. After her speech, a young woman approached Rachel. She looked tired, worried, overwhelmed. She had a baby on her hip and desperate hope in her eyes. "I heard your story," the young woman said quietly, "and I wondered if maybe the foundation could help me too. I'm trying to finish school, but it's so hard." Rachel smiled and put a gentle hand on the woman's arm. "Tell me about it," she said. "Tell me everything. We're going to figure this out together. And the circle continued. Kindness flowing forward, life after life changed by people who chose to care. It had started with a stranger in a grocery store. It had grown into something beautiful, and it was never going to stop.